Welcome to the Pod-Key summary of Chris Young. Chris Young had one of those sports lives that almost sounds made up if you stack it all in one place. He was a star in 2 sports, an Ivy League standout, a major league pitcher who succeeded without big velocity, a comeback story more than once, and now he's running the Rangers after helping build a World Series winner. What ties it all together is a career that kept proving the same point. People kept seeing what he lacked, and he kept showing them what still worked. Before pro ball, Young was already doing the overachiever thing at Highland Park High School in Texas. He scored more than 1,000 points in basketball, grabbed 500 rebounds, blocked 200 shots, and on the baseball side he went 14-3 with 180 strikeouts. As a senior in 1998, he led Highland Park to the Texas Class 4A baseball title and the state basketball final, earning first-team All-State honors in both sports. Even a stress fracture that wiped out much of his junior baseball season didn't stop him from throwing multiple no-hitters in high school, which feels like a pretty good hint of what was coming later. At Princeton, he somehow kept the 2-sport thing rolling at a high level. He became the Ivy League's first male 2-sport Rookie of the Year, and he got that honor unanimously in both basketball and baseball. In basketball, he finished with 801 points, 350 rebounds, and 142 blocks. And as a freshman, he was Ivy League Player of the Year and a freshman All-American. On the mound, he led the league with a 2.38 ERA as a freshman and a 1.82 ERA as a sophomore. And one of the most telling details about him is that after signing with Pittsburgh for $1.65 million in 2000, he still made finishing Princeton a priority. He completed his politics degree in 2002 while commuting on minor league buses with the Hickory Crawdads, which is a very specific kind of glamorous. His senior thesis studied how Jackie Robinson and baseball integration changed racial stereotypes in New York Times coverage. So even then, he was connecting sports to bigger questions about race culture and how people get seen. Young was 6'10", one of the tallest players in Major League history, and that made people assume power pitcher. But that really wasn't his game. His fastball usually sat around 83 to 87 miles per hour, and he succeeded with deception, command, and movement. Orel Hershiser talked about how well he could locate that pitch all over the strike zone, and hitters kept saying the same basic thing in different ways. It looked sneaky fast. He was compared more to control artists like Greg Maddux or Jim Palmer than to Randy Johnson, even though the height made the Johnson comparison irresistible. His style leaned into pop-ups and fly balls, with more than half the balls in play against him going in the air. In 2007, only 3.8% of those fly balls turned into home runs, way below the roughly 11% average cited in the source material. So the low velocity wasn't just something he survived for a while. It was part of what made him hard to solve. The cleanest version of that came in 2006 with San Diego. Young went 11-5 with a 3.46 ERA and 169 strikeouts, led the majors with a 2.41 road ERA, allowed just 6.72 hits per 9, and held hitters to a .206 average. He also ran his streak of undefeated road starts to 24, one shy of Allie Reynolds' major league record. That season had a bunch of almost no-hitters, including one on September 22 against Pittsburgh, when he carried a no-hit bid into the 9th before Joe Randa broke it up with a 2-run homer. He followed that regular season by beating the Cardinals in Game 3 of the division series with 6 2/3 shutout innings and 9 strikeouts. Then in 2007, he made his first All-Star team through the final vote, after briefly leading all pitchers in ERA and opponent batting average. And because baseball enjoys being weird, his All-Star appearance is remembered, in part because Ichiro hit the first inside-the-park home run in All-Star game history off him. Then came the rougher middle stretch, and it was rough in a very physical way. Young dealt with shoulder inflammation, a torn labrum repaired in 2008, a torn anterior capsule in 2011, and later thoracic outlet syndrome after 2013. He missed nearly all of 2009 and 2011, and by 2013, he made only 9 starts for Washington, with a 6.81 ERA. A lot of careers just end in that kind of fog, but his didn't. With Seattle in 2014, on a heavily incentivized deal, he came back to go 12-9 with a 3.65 ERA in 29 starts and won multiple Comeback Player of the Year awards. He even had to make a rare relief appearance because of a rainout, then went right back to starting and threw 6 scoreless innings in his first start since 2012. In Kansas City in 2015, he moved between long relief and the rotation, threw 5 no-hit innings against Detroit, and even drove in 3 runs while pitching 7 shutout innings against Milwaukee. That flexibility mattered in the Royals' championship run. One day after his father died, he started against Cleveland and threw 5 no-hit innings. And in Game 1 of the World Series, he got the win by shutting down the Mets over the final 3 innings of that 14-inning opener, allowing no hits and 1 walk while striking out 4. The last chapter on the field was less romantic, which is how this usually goes. After the Royals re-signed him, his 2016 season fell apart with a 6.19 ERA, 10.6 hits allowed per 9 innings, and 28 home runs allowed. In 2017, he was mostly in the bullpen, posted a 7.50 ERA in 14 games, and Kansas City released him in June. His career line finished at 79-67 with a 3.95 ERA and 1,062 strikeouts across 5 organizations. And because his whole story has a little bit of everything, his 2011 Mets debut also included him going 3 for 3 with 2 RBIs and becoming the first Mets pitcher to get 2 hits in 1 inning. After retiring, Young moved into Major League Baseball's central office in 2018, first as a vice president overseeing on-field operations, initiatives, and strategy under Joe Torre. By 2020, he was the senior vice president handling discipline, fines, suspensions, on-field operations, and umpiring. So instead of going straight into scouting or coaching, he took this broader governance route, bringing in first-hand experience with pitching, injuries, and the realities players deal with. Later in 2020, the Rangers hired him as general manager. Under his leadership, Texas turned into a contender and won the 2023 World Series over Arizona in 5 games. Then in September 2024, the Rangers gave him a multi-year extension and added the title President of Baseball Operations. One reason Young's story sticks is that it keeps circling back to evaluation. He was traded multiple times, and part of the doubt followed him because the radar gun didn't flatter him. But his career kept arguing for a bigger view of talent: command, deception, adaptability, durability when possible, and the ability to reinvent when durability wasn't possible. He built a major league career, came back from injuries that could have closed the book, and then became a top baseball executive. That's a pretty convincing case that what works in sports is not always the loudest thing on the scouting report. So if you only knew Chris Young as a tall right-hander with an oddly modest fastball, that was never the whole picture. He kept finding ways to matter in school, on the mound, in the clubhouse, and now in the front office. And honestly, for someone whose game was built on making hitters misread what they were seeing, that feels strangely perfect. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.